I figured after a while the enlightenment wasn't going to happen, because it had been over 20 years. And so I figured it's not going to happen. So I figured, well, I might as well get to know this ego I'm stuck with. You see?
Okay.
And that was my last practice, was getting to know the ego and really totally know it. I'm talking just to see it for what it is and watch all of its tricks, all of its games. You see, the thing about the ego is it's like a magician. It's making all this seem like you. It's making all this seem like real, you see? And it's none of those things. So it's like a magician. And the magician only has power when you don't know its tricks. If the magician shows you, oh, yeah, this is really great. Oh, that was amazing. Look, all I did was this. You see, the coin was hidden over here. You see, you didn't see it, and your attention was over here. And then he does the trick again. It's not so interesting. It doesn't have any power. It's not interesting anymore. So as I did that and learned more and more, eventually the ego lost its power. The mind lost its power. It couldn't trick me anymore. I knew what it was up to, you see. And so there was this sense. The ego used to be in charge, and there was this sense of that was switching. Instead of being the mind, I had a mind. You see, and so the positions were changing, and the ego didn't even, it wasn't so entertaining for the ego when it couldn't fool me. So you see, the ego's finding the ways it can fool you. Stagnation, that sense of maybe going backwards, all of that, that grabs your attention, you see. Ego's got you.
It does. It appeals. Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
It really is speaking to that spiritual seeker identity. That wants, that so desires this full realization. And so that's why there's still an interest, because there's an attachment. I feel strong attachment to this desire, to transcend in this lifetime, to really be, the hunger to be with God in every moment, to feel the God presence profoundly is very strong. And so, as you say, then mind is using that to evaluate my progress, and it's been creating. I've been listening. You're right. It's saying you need to choose a guru. You have to be in India. It's setting up conditions for enlightenment, like it's my spiritual advisor.
Yeah, very bad spiritual advisor. The mind.
Is the word. So, and excuse me, Ananta, is the feedback less?
Yes, it's less.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay.
So, it's a double-edged sword. This, because that intensity, that earnestness, which is what Nisargadatta called it, Ramesh's guru. That earnestness,
yes, I love
is like a requirement, but it has to be so strong that there's a willingness to give it all up, all of it. That the mind is willing to basically face suicide. In its sense that it is in charge. You see, the mind's never been in charge. God has always been in charge. That's why things don't go the way you want so often. You see, because you're not in charge. Sometimes you're in alignment, sometimes you're not. But this thing about God being in charge is a very valuable concept because it diminishes the ego. This is what you want, is for that sense of me to be diminished. What will be amazing is what you'll find is that when the ego subsides into the background, that which you wanted was always there. It's there right now.
Yes.
But the mind wants it. And it's not something that can be possessed. Because the only things that can be possessed are illusion.
Mm-hmm.
Because who are they possessed by? They're possessed by an individual. What's the individual? An illusion. You see? So you know what's real because what's real are the things that never change. This life, these bodies, these minds are in constant movement. But the movement springs out of stillness. So stillness is like this 100%. And movement springs out of it, which is like a 0.00001%. But while the body is there and the mind is there, you're thinking that's the 100%. But it's not, because look, you know, these lives, they seem monotonously long when you're in them. But they're not. They're really not.
Yes.
You know, in 100 years, no one's going to remember it. It's all gone. In 1,000,000 years, in 1,000,000,000,000 years, you get your perspective. This is just a temporary phenomenon. And everything that you see, think, say, and do is temporary. It's fading. It comes and goes. But that which is, always is. It doesn't come and go. It's a constant. And it's with you now because it's what you sprung out of. It's always with you. It's what makes your heart beat. It's there. It's the source of all. So, but while you're living, thinking that these are your thoughts and these are your actions, well, what the thing is, then you get a story. And the mind loves stories. The mind will go to the movies to see a story. The mind loves stories. But stories require movement, time. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You see? It's lovely. So you go to the movies. So imagine there's a lineup of souls, say. They're living in that infinite oneness. And they say, you know, I'd like to go to the movies. And they're looking at these different lives. You know, I'd like a horror film this time. You know, I want a romantic comedy. It's like, you know, all these different lives, and they're just diving in and going to the movies. So you're enjoying your movie, okay? But you have that rare gene of spiritual seeking. You want to know the truth. You are an illusion that wants to know the truth. It's very rare, you know. Most people want money or sex or something else. But you want to know the truth. It's kind of a funny thing to want to know when you're an illusion, but okay. So just take it like this is just a movie, and it's going to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you know, you've been to lots of movies in your life. You've seen tons of them. You know, this is just one that seems bigger than those movies to you, but it's not. And it's nothing to do with you. You have to suspend your belief in everything. You have to, okay, so you go to the movie theater and you go, okay, there's these colors on a screen. I'm going to imagine that these pictures are something real, that they're moving, and this is really happening. And you hear sounds coming out of a speaker. You go, I'm going to imagine that these are the voices of the people and the sounds of the events, and you dive into the movie and you enjoy it. But if you go to that same movie and you go, what is this? These are just colors on a screen. There's just sounds coming out of a speaker. Well, then you don't enjoy the movie, do you? You walk out. So it's the rare person that's willing to walk out of a movie, even if it's a bad one. It's a rare person that's willing to do that. So you're one of those rare people. So just realize that all of this is just a show. You're simply watching a show that you call your life.
Yes.
And although it seems very powerful and strong now, and all of the drama and all of the action seems very real now, if you get your perspective, none of it will seem like anything in a very short matter of time. This will all be dust. And
yes.
So there's the perspective. I love the perspective because, it seems so intense, so real now, but it won't. In a short manner of time, it won't. So just try and keep your perspective through the process. And just remember, okay? So whatever experiences you've had with various gurus, with various enlightened beings, they're just reminders of home. So keep remembering what that is, what it feels like. It's not even in the teaching that any of them have, but there's a feeling around it all that is that feeling of home, that sense of just complete peace and unconditional love. You see? And that is always with you. Your awareness of it comes and goes. But that's not what counts, because everything with the mind comes and goes. But you, this essence is always with you. And that's what I would remember in whatever way reminds you. If it means going to an enlightened being, great. I did that for 20 years. If it means just doing spiritual practices, to remember, just remember. And if you make the commitment to remember, then eventually you will forget. And then they'll say, oh, enlightenment, or something like that. But what you'll find is then you're at peace, because you never forget. That peace is always with you. It doesn't ever leave, and your personal awareness of it doesn't count anymore. You see?
Yes.
Because what difference does that make? It's always here. So
that's a good point.
So keep that, and just, do you have any other questions?
Thank you. This is I've been taking notes in addition to recording. It's wonderful. Yeah, as you were speaking, I think I'm noting that there's been a trick of mind that's been spotted here, which is that, as you say, the remembering. The mind will say, "Oh, you only know it intellectually. You don't really know that directly. You're just saying it over and over." But I remember Nisargadatta sharing about, I believe, his guru, and that his guru said, "You are the Para Brahman," and he just kept repeating it to himself to remember. And when I do that, when I say, I am whatever it is, I'm absolute awareness, and I sort of feel it, and then the mind will come in and say, "Oh, you don't really know that. You're just saying it." and then something is believing that and becoming discouraged.
It's just a trick. It's just a trick to suck you in. You see? And also, this thing, I am God, okay, it doesn't, you get it when you get it. And initially, there's a person saying it. And eventually, it's just a being. It's a truth, you see. And there's no one being it because it just is. But you see, it changes with the intensity of that. So he literally, in all his spare moments, Nisargadatta, all of them devoted it to this I am God. So when he wasn't needing to take care of his worldly stuff, all of him was just devoted to that I am God, I am God. And it also had the power of his guru. You see? And the guru told him. So like Baba said the same thing. Baba said, God dwells within you as you. And no difference, the same. So that's, you just, at first it's a practice. And so your mind's criticism, yes, of course. So what? You know, it clicks when it clicks. And it's not something that you can do. It's something that happens. And so all you can hope for is that the mind is prepared enough that when it happens, the ego cannot successfully reach out and try and take possession.
Yes.
So 999 times out of 1,000, the ego will grab the enlightenment successfully and make it disappear.
Oh, I think that's what's been occurring.
Yeah, so, okay. So you see, the gift is already there. And all that has to happen now is that you stop taking yourself seriously. You see, right now you have identified enough with your thoughts and feelings and actions that identification comes in and tries to possess the enlightenment, which it cannot do. So you see, the intensity has to be so strong that there's a willingness to surrender, even if it means losing the ego altogether. You don't know what will happen, you see.
Yes.
And it's not, but it doesn't matter if you're extreme enough. You see, I was always an extremist. So I'm thinking that you are as well. But you're going to have to be even more extreme. This earnestness has to be so strong that the ego can't grab it. It cannot possess it.
I see. But such an interest in the way that different Advaita teachers present the same pointings. But I feel like maybe I've gotten to a point again of spiritual indigestion because I follow Nisargadatta and Rupert Spira and Muji, of course, Gurumayi and Baba and Ramana and Papaji, and I love them all, and Yogananda.
Yeah.
And I love them all. I cannot decide. And a teacher in San Diego as well, but all Advaita. But I'm wondering if you recommend, and from your experience, really to focus in and say, you know, there's a resonance here, and here, but I need to focus and just follow the particular way that this guru is pointing to the truth.
Yeah, you know, you follow your resonance when it comes to enlightened beings. I was so lucky. You know, so like I was with Baba, and then when Baba passed, I was with Gurumayi, and Gurumayi and I were actually quite close. And we knew each other well. I mean, I knew her when she was malty and trying to sneak ginger ales into Baba's house. I would protect her. So it's like, so we had a long history. We knew each other well.
Oh.
She had a lot of respect for me, but she was not, I knew I didn't have the resonance with her. But
Okay.
I stayed on because I was in the ashram, And then when I was in Ganeshpuri, I just happened upon a group of people in Bombay from the ashram who were going to see this enlightened guy. So I tagged along. It was Ramesh. And
I love seeing him in Rays of the Absolute. I think he was featured in that movie. Sorry.
Oh, I don't know that movie.
Documentary about Nisargadatta, but
Yeah.
Ramesh is in there a lot, I think, as translator.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
He and Mullah Patan were translators for him. Yeah. Anyway, so that was like the second talk Ramesh ever gave, and I was like the first person who came by regular to see Ramesh for years. He didn't have an ashram, so I just made my own in Bombay and went over to see him. And I would spend half the day there. He took me in like family, and it was so sweet. But Ramesh would talk and talk and talk, and eventually the sponge was just full. And so you see the last picture there is Shree Gajanan Maharaj. And he was the first guru I ever met in junior high school.
Wow.
And my two best friends were his disciples. And he always had a picture of Shree there. I always said, if I ever had a chance, I would like to meet him. And, well, I had a chance. I was living in India. And like I said, my brain was full. I'm listening to Ramesh,
Yes.
And so I managed to get over there. I don't know if you're familiar with, in Baba's ashram, he had the picture in the meditation hall of this one guru with real long arms, and he looked really odd, and he was in that lineage, the Akkalkot Swami, and so anyway, he in his ashram, there really weren't any Westerners. I met one time there was a German person there. Another time there were a few different people, but mostly it was just me. And when I went, and it was just quiet there. And it's so great about Indian ashrams as opposed to Western ones. They don't have any rules. They don't tell you what to do. They just assume you've come halfway around the world. You know why you're here. You take care of it. So
I found that at Ramana ashram.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, Ramana's ashram. Ramana Maharshi, you went there? Is that what you're talking about?
I did in 2019. Yeah, I spent some time there intentionally. Yeah.
Ramesh suggested I should go there, so I did in Tiruvamala. So
yes,
it was early days, and I just showed up, and they gave me like a little hut, little hut. It was right in front of where he used to give darshan and stuff. It was the quietest 2 weeks or 3 weeks I've ever experienced. It was just quiet. It was almost too quiet for me at that time. But I've always had such a strong resonance with Ramana. He's like the guru's guru. And even Ramesh, he had a big picture of Ramana right by his desk, and I asked him about it, and he goes, Ramana is my real guru. I met him through Nisargadatta.
Wow.
So it was like that. He always has a special place with me. Anyhow, so I went to see Shree, and it was great. It was silent. I got to be in that energy, though, you see. And Shree didn't teach through, he didn't give talks. And and I wasn't interested, I knew the particular discipline of the ashram because my best friends from elementary school were his disciples. So I knew about it and I was familiar with it. I didn't really do that, and it was totally fine. And I just was able to sit there and absorb what Ramesh had said and be in that same unconditional love energy without any distraction. It was very nice. So I got to do that. Anyhow, how did we get to that? We were talking about gurus.
About is it necessary to choose a guru? And you said if there's with whom do you feel the most resonance?
Yeah, that's all. If you have strong resonance with someone, it won't even be the question, because that's where you'll be. You'll know that's where you want to be. You see, having put in 20 years, and with the earnestness that you have, it may just be time for you to do it, to just take it on and remember. And you see, you've had enough of exposure to that unconditional love. You've had that. So now it might be time just simply to remember that. And to remember that you don't have to be there to be in that energy. So do you have a puja? Do you have a place where...
I do.
Yeah, okay.
We do. Yes, we do here.
So fix that all up to your liking. Make sure everything's exactly the way you want it to be. And make a reason that you need to consistently go back to it. It could be incense. It could be a candle. It could be none of those things. It could just be, a practice that you always go back to remember. And I don't know how it is for you, but in my puja, my gurus are all there. They were always there. And it was not subtle. You could feel it. Even a stranger coming to the house could feel it. So it's like, that presence was always there. So it was a reminder. And so you just need now to remember. Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you for saying that. As you said that, I could feel in my heart, this is the truth. This is the truth. And that I don't need to go searching. I think it's the mind that says it's time to go find, a living guru in India. But the truth is, I've had many gurus, and if I don't have some awareness of the teachings by now, then I may not in this lifetime. It's really, I love this, the remembering, and I don't meditate in front of the puja, but I could, or chant in front of the puja. I do dust it. I saw Nisargadatta, some footage of him every day, multiple times a day, dusting, his puja.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He had a practice, and he did a whole thing on each picture in there. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And may I ask you too, is there a particular, do you continue to meditate? And if so, is there a particular way of meditating that you recommend? Jeff shares with me his practice that's really helped him to remember, but I've learned multiple practices and I don't feel a resonance with any of them except perhaps Muji saying empty, 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 and keep dropping the personal identity.
So if you have resonance with that, I would recommend it. I don't meditate because it's redundant.
I thought maybe you dropped it.
Well, it's ongoing, you see.
Yes.
So I'm a walking, talking meditation. That's all. But the primary is that. Okay, the rest of the stuff is there, but it's never primary anymore. So I don't have practices at all. Certainly, because there's nowhere to go, and there's nothing that's not that. So, but for you, Just do the things that remind you. And I don't care if it's meditation or not. Just do the things that remind you. Whatever reminds you of home. Now, my main spiritual practice was hanging out with enlightened beings. It was the energy. I was after the energy. I could feel it around them. You see, I could feel the unconditional love. And I think because it was so strong with me, I got very rare exposure. So like with Baba, I was the guard who sat in his house, who let people in or not.
Wow.
You see, but it was strong with me. There were only 3 of us that were able to keep that job. The other ones would be on there for a day or two, and Gurumayi would say, they're gone. So there were just a few of us, and we were not the typical, like, what you would picture as the devoted whatever, but we were. But, like Kartik and I, he was the one I was buddies with. Both of us were there. And we were both smokers. We couldn't wait to get off the ship and run into the woods. Well, it wasn't really allowed, but, and they could smell it on our breath. But in India, they don't have any problem with that. But in any case, it was fine because the level of our devotion was such, you see? And I knew everything going on around there. And I never said anything to anybody because that was I would never. And so that I could be totally trusted. And that, I only recognized that in retrospect. But you see, so it's like I got this exposure. So, and then oftentimes I would walk with Baba to the hall. I did not go to many programs because I was always at Baba's door to let him in and to walk with him to the hall and then go back, you see. But it was a good job, because I would just basically be walking just in front of him to the side so people didn't trip him up. There were so many people like that. And so I got real close proximity. I would sit there in his house and he would be sitting there staring at me, right? And then as soon as I looked at him, he'd look away.
Oh, wow, it's amazing.
And then he would sit there and stare at me. And it's like, that was, that's how it is too, you see. That's how it is. I don't know about you. I used to get, in my meditation, I would get lights, big lights that would come from behind. And as soon as my mind focused on the light, it would go away. But if I stayed still, it would come front and center. You see? As long as the mind didn't try and respond to it.
I see.
And that's what Baba was doing.
That's amazing. It's amazing. I can't even imagine to be in the physical presence of Baba and Gurumayi.
It was wonderful. It was great. And so I was very lucky, you see. And then with Ramesh, I was in on the ground floor. It's just he and I. So it's like but this was my level of devotion also. I had a particular level of devotion that was, I guess, rare. But for me, it was just the way I was. So
that's so beautiful.
You've done 20 years of sadhana, and so, okay, that's enough sadhana. Now, just remember, you see, you've done all this work to get to this place. Now just remember and don't get tricked by the ego. Don't allow the ego to grab your attention, you see, and get you back, you see. So like
Yes.
Ramesh used to say, the difference between a yogi and a bogi, that a bogi would have a thought and then is pursued, but a yogi would have the same exact thought, it just wouldn't be pursued. So you see, then the thoughts just come and go.
Okay.
But for the bogi, the thoughts come and they stay. And then they become other thoughts. And then they become feelings. And you see, that's what happens when the thought of your stagnation or regression, when that comes up, you follow it. Then you start having feelings about it. You see? But all that is the result of pursuit of thought. So if you just recognize what the mind is doing and how you participate in its making this all seem like it's something, you see, that which you are is beyond being a thing. It just is. This idea that you have of yourself as a person is just something that will come and go. But that which you are will remain. It was here before you were born. It will be here after you die. The trick is to see that it's here now.
Yes, thank you. As I said, and my seeming stagnation, but I'm going to scrap that because you're absolutely right that this is really play of the mind, and many things have been seen, but I've been hooked. I've been hooked, and so even with the relationship, oh, what do I do? Should I go to India? Well, what will happen to the relationship? All of that is the drama for the person. So there's someone interested.
Right. There's still things in life you have to take care of, but the intensity and that yuckiness that stays with you, that's gone. So you still take care of your daily life, but this is not you, so it doesn't really matter. And really just remember, this enlightenment is not in your hands. You can't make it happen, and so that notion that is false, that all these practices are going to get you there. That's not true. But these practices will get you to a place where when that free sample comes, it doesn't go away.
Yes.
But the free sample doesn't come from you.
Right.
So,
it's the grace of God.
When it happened in my case, it was kind of, I would call it subtle in a way. It was and it wasn't, but in a way it was subtle. And I just thought, well, first of all, I thought, well, if this is enlightenment, it's certainly not what I was seeking, because I was seeking something much more grand than that. But, well,
thank you.
There was another thought. Hold on. But
please.
When the enlightenment happened, it wasn't what I was seeking. And at first I just thought to myself, well, whatever this is, I didn't make it happen. And I never took it as permanent. I'd had lots of spiritual experiences, and none of them were permanent. So I didn't take it that way. I said, I didn't make this come, and there's nothing I can do if it goes away. After about 20 years, I began to think, well, maybe it's permanent.
But that was your surrender attitude too.
Yeah.
The mind didn't, as you say, the ego didn't grab it and say, "This is it. I have to hold on to it at all costs. You simply allowed it to be there, and if it went, it was okay. If it stayed, it was okay.
Exactly.
So that attitude, I'm sure, is tremendously helpful.
I think I don't hear this much from enlightened beings, but I experienced it as in the beginning like a little wavering. It wasn't really, but it felt that way. It felt like it was coming and going, kind of like there and not there. It was just like what personal awareness was there was noticing it and not noticing it. And so it's like, things come and go. I just figured it was one of those things, but it did stay. So in any case, don't fool yourself into thinking that your practices will get you there. All they'll do is prepare the ground for it to happen. And
this is the key. Thank you.
Yeah, and for it to be sustained.
Thank you. That was a misconception of mine. You really cleared it up. Bless you. Bless you, Ananta. I'm so grateful. This is most generous of you. Thank you. And it's tremendously helpful.
It's been so long since I've done this. I think it's going to pick up again. I haven't done anything on YouTube for about a year now. I think it's going to pick up again because I actually spoke to Linda G, who on YouTube. So we'll do another collaboration and we'll see if I can get it to a point where I can do satsang on YouTube live. But I don't have enough hours of people watching my videos yet for that to happen. I have enough subscribers, but I need the hours, and because my videos aren't so long, if I had 51-hour videos, maybe that would happen. But this stuff can only be taken in small doses usually.
It's wonderful. The way that you present, it's been so refreshing.
Oh, good.
For me, it's really made the teaching come alive. And you're saying things I've heard Muji say, but hearing it in a fresh way from you, and you speaking of your personal experiences on the path has been just gold. So I go back and listen repeatedly to your satsangs and share them with my Advaita friends.
Oh, sweet! Please do, because if it catches on, then I can devote more energy to it. So
wonderful.
And we'll see what happens.
Yes. Thank you. May I make a donation?
Yes.
For today through your website, or how to do that?
If you actually go to any of my videos on YouTube, there's a link for PayPal, and
I'll do that.
I had to switch the link to my given name, Ed Nathanson, because it was such a hassle to do it the other way, and I wasn't getting any donations anyway. Ramesh insisted on calling me Ed because he said, "You have a perfectly good English name."
That's great.
Yeah, so
that's great.
So he insisted on calling me Ed, and all my friends called me Ananta, but then I heard people talking. One of his seminars. When I lived on Maui, he would give seminars on Maui. And I heard people talking, and they didn't know that Ananta and Ed were the same person. So then I said, okay, it'll be Ed. And then after the enlightenment, it went back to Ananta, because that's the name Baba gave me. And it was back in the old days when Chakrapani, Baba's astrologer, quite well known.
Hmm.
He just passed a few years ago.
Hmm.
Chakrapani was sitting by his side, working out the exact time and date and what name you got.
Wow.
So after a while, it was just a name out of a hat.
That's amazing.
But
That's amazing. What a blessed life.
I was very fortunate, but it was something about the inherent sincerity that was there that drew it to me, you see. And you too,
Mm-hmm.
you see, you too have had the same with all the different enlightened beings, true enlightened beings that you have had contact with in your life. It's the same. So because of that, I trust your sincerity to okay, just remember. If you can do that one thing, if you can remember, that's all that needs to happen at this point. If you can remember, that's it. Because once you remember, you never forget. And then life becomes effortless.
Yes, absolutely.